It started as an experiment to protect the world and ended by almost destroying it. In 1954, far from the eyes of the world, the United States prepared to conduct an experiment that would change human history forever. The Cold War was in full force. Two superpowers, America and the Soviet Union, raced to master the ultimate weapon, the hydrogen bomb. The atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki had already shown humanity's power to destroy. But scientists wanted more. They wanted to harness fusion, the same reaction that powers the sun. The project's goal, to prove that mankind could control the fire of the stars. At Los Alamos and later on Bikini Atoll, American physicists, engineers, and military commanders worked around the clock. The weapon they built was codenamed Bravo. Inside the labs, chalk dust filled the air as equations covered blackboards, radiation yields, neutron cross-sections, critical mass thresholds. The lead physicist, Dr. Alvin Graves, was calm but ambitious. He believed this bomb could end all wars. "If we make it powerful enough," he told his team, "no one will ever dare to start another." Outside, naval officers prepared the test site. Thousands of tons of steel, cables, and instruments were shipped to a coral island that would soon cease to exist. They estimated the yield at 6 megatons, already the most powerful explosion in human history. But hidden in those equations was a silent mistake. March 1st, 1954, 6:45 a.m. The Pacific was quiet. Seabirds circled the lagoon. On the command ship, USS Mount McKinley, soldiers adjusted their goggles. "Ready to fire," said the radio operator. Dr. Graves looked down at the control panel. His fingers hovered above the button. "Commence test sequence," he ordered. 3, 2, 1. A flash of white, brighter than 1,000 suns. The horizon vanished. The sea boiled. The island disappeared beneath a growing sphere of fire. Slow-motion shot, a mushroom cloud clawing its way 25 miles into the stratosphere. Within seconds, the blast wave reached the ship. It hit with the force of a hurricane. Men were thrown against bulkheads. Cameras shattered. On nearby islands, palm trees were stripped bare, their trunks smoking like matchsticks. And yet, the real horror was invisible. In the bunker, a technician stared at his readings, eyes wide. "Sir, it's not 6 megatons." "Then what is it?" 15, maybe more. Silence. Only the hum of instruments remained. The scientists had underestimated the reaction of lithium-7, a stable isotope in the bomb's fuel. They had assumed it wouldn't react, but under fusion temperatures, it broke apart, releasing a flood of neutrons that triggered runaway fusion. In an instant, their controlled experiment became a chain reaction far beyond prediction. The fireball expanded over 4 miles wide. Temperatures soared to tens of millions of degrees. Coral, sand, and seawater turned into molten glass. The explosion carved a crater nearly 2 kilometers across and 80 meters deep. A shockwave of radiation and dust punched into the atmosphere, carrying billions of tons of radioactive particles high above the ocean. Hours later, 80 miles away, the Daigo Fukuryu Maru, the Lucky Dragon No. 5, was fishing for tuna. The crew watched a strange glow on the horizon. A few hours later, white ash began to fall. "It looks like snow," one fisherman said, laughing. They brushed it from their clothes, their nets, their lunch. They didn't know that the snow was radioactive coral dust, infused with plutonium and fission products. By evening, they felt dizzy. By midnight, their skin itched and burned. By dawn, they vomited uncontrollably. Within days, their hair fell out. Within weeks, open sores spread across their bodies. When they returned to Japan, Doctors were horrified. These were radiation injuries unlike anything seen since Hiroshima. Meanwhile, the fallout cloud drifted far beyond what anyone expected. Wind patterns carried it across 7,000 square miles, contaminating Rongerik, Rongelap, and over 200 inhabited islands. Children played in the falling ash, believing it was snow. Days later, they screamed as burns appeared on their skin. Livestock died, coconut trees shed leaves overnight. Fishing boats hundreds of miles away found dead birds floating on the sea. When the US military realized the scale of contamination, panic spread. Evacuation orders came too late. The damage was done. Radioactive rain fell as far away as India and Australia. Instruments in Hawaii and California recorded spikes in radiation. Publicly, the US called it an accident of wind. Privately, officials knew the truth. It was a scientific failure born from overconfidence and rushed calculations. The Japanese government demanded answers. Newspapers showed photographs of the Lucky Dragon crew's burned faces. Protests erupted across Tokyo. No more nuclear monsters. Behind closed doors, diplomats scrambled. America feared that admitting fault would weaken its global standing. They quietly paid compensation to Japan and the Marshall Islanders, but never fully disclosed the contamination maps. Declassified documents decades later revealed that fallout had reached the Philippines, Japan, and even the US West Coast. On Rongelap Atoll, 82 people were exposed to heavy radiation. Their hair fell out, their skin darkened, blistered, and cracked. Women later gave birth to stillborn babies described as jellyfish-like, translucent, boneless. The islanders were relocated to another atoll, but that land too became contaminated. They moved again. Some never returned home. The Lucky Dragon's radio operator, Kuboyama Aikichi, died 6 months later from acute radiation poisoning. His final words became immortal. "I pray that I am the last victim of an atomic bomb." But history proved otherwise. In laboratories across America, some scientists celebrated the data. They had created the most powerful thermonuclear reaction ever recorded. Others were horrified. A physicist wrote in his private notes, "We unlocked a force that does not belong on this planet." Dr. Graves himself, once proud, grew withdrawn. When asked about the test years later, he simply said, "We built a sun and watched it fall to Earth." Castle Bravo's fallout shocked the world into awareness. The Soviet Union accused the US of poisoning the ocean. Japan, still haunted by war, began a powerful anti-nuclear movement. For the first time, ordinary citizens realized nuclear tests didn't just destroy battlefields, they poisoned the planet itself. In the years that followed, global outrage led to the Partial Test Ban Treaty of 1963, which prohibited atmospheric detonations. But by then, more than 1,000 bombs had already scarred the Earth's crust and sky. The once lush islands of Bikini Atoll became ghostly. Coconut crabs, once a delicacy, carried lethal levels of cesium-137. Radiation levels dropped over decades, but the soil remained tainted. When scientists tested returning residents in the 1970s, they found elevated radiation in bones and hair. The US evacuated them again, this time permanently. Today, aerial photos show the Castle Bravo crater, a turquoise lagoon ringed by coral. It looks peaceful from above. Tourists sometimes mistake it for paradise. But Geiger counters still tick faster there than anywhere else on Earth. For viewers, the science behind the tragedy is crucial. Let's break it down. Hydrogen bombs rely on fusion, combining isotopes of hydrogen, deuterium and tritium to release massive energy. Because tritium is rare, scientists used lithium deuteride, believing only lithium-6 would react. But when the explosion began, the extreme heat split lithium-7 atoms as well, producing more tritium and neutrons, doubling the chain reaction. In short, a single miscalculation in nuclear chemistry multiplied the yield by nearly 3. That small error unleashed an energy output equivalent to 1,000 Hiroshima bombs all at once. It wasn't malice, it was ignorance, the kind born from ambition, unchecked by humility. Montage sequence, archival footage of mushroom clouds, scientists in white coats, governments signing documents, people protesting in the streets. Narrator: every great discovery begins with curiosity, but curiosity without conscience becomes chaos. Between 1945 and 1996, over 2,000 nuclear tests were conducted worldwide. Each one left behind invisible scars: radiation in the soil, cancer in generations, silence in once living lands. In the Marshall Islands, survivors still speak of the day the sky turned white. Elders recall how the birds vanished, how the sea boiled. Some remember the taste of the white dust, salty, metallic, unforgettable. Their stories became songs passed down through generations, lullabies for children who would never see their ancestral homes. Castle Bravo wasn't just a weapon test, it was a warning. It forced humanity to confront the truth that our knowledge had outgrown our wisdom. The global movement that followed gave rise to organizations like Greenpeace and the International Campaign to abolish nuclear weapons. But despite treaties, more powerful bombs were built. Tsar Bomba in 1961, a monstrous 50 megatons, proving the lesson hadn't yet been learned. Decades later, in the 2000s, a handful of islanders and scientists returned to Bikini Atoll. They dove into the lagoon. The coral reefs had regrown, shimmering in neon colors, life reclaiming what death had taken. Yet Geiger counters still crackled softly underwater. Nature was recovering, but never fully healed. One diver described it best: "It's the most beautiful place I've ever seen, and the saddest." Archival interview, gray-haired physicist, trembling hands. "We weren't evil. We were excited. We thought we were protecting the world. We didn't realize we were gambling with it." He pauses, eyes glistening. "When I saw the light rise over the ocean, I thought it was beautiful, until I realized that beauty could kill." The Castle Bravo crater remains today, a silent monument to human error, a wound carved not just into coral and stone, but into the conscience of humankind. From above, it looks peaceful, a perfect turquoise ring, shimmering beneath the Pacific sun. Tourists call it beautiful. Pilots passing overhead see only paradise, but beauty here is a mask. Beneath the surface, the sand whispers. It hums with a faint, invisible pulse. The afterglow of mankind's most reckless creation. Every grain of coral remembers the day the sky caught fire. Every wave that touches the rim carries fragments of the fallout that changed the world. There are no statues, no plaques, no memorial stones, only silence. Its only monument is the absence of life, the emptiness of paradise turned into a scar, an oceanic wound that never fully closed. Fish have returned. Coral grows again. Yet deep within, the radiation lingers, like guilt that time cannot wash away. The worst science experiment in history wasn't just a blast of radiation. It was the moment humanity learned that knowledge without humility can end everything. Every empire, every age, every generation believes it can control the fire it builds. But fire does not obey. It only waits. We built a sun to prove our strength, and it burned our hands. We turned paradise into poison, and in chasing power, we forgot the purpose of science, not to dominate nature, but to understand it. We thought we could command creation, but creation does not need our permission. The same hands that ignite stars can also cradle life, if only we remember to choose. The real power of science was never in destruction. It was in the courage to admit when we've gone too far.